Have you ever given someone your time, your energy, your heart, only to feel like they stopped noticing you were even there? It starts slowly. They stop texting first, stop showing appreciation, start assuming you'll always be available. And you tell yourself, maybe if I just love harder, they'll come back around. But here's the truth. The more you overstay where you're undervalued, the more invisible you become. At some point, it's not about fixing the connection. It's about protecting your self-worth. This isn't about revenge. It's about removal, about stepping away, not to hurt them, but to heal you. Because sometimes the most powerful message you can send is silence. When someone takes you for granted, it often doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion. At first, they're responsive, attentive, maybe even affectionate. But over time, you start to feel a shift. They stop noticing the little things. They stop showing up in the ways they used to. And you start compensating. You try harder. You give more. You bend further. All because you're trying to hold onto the connection you once had. But here's the truth most people don't want to accept. The more you give to someone who's stopped appreciating you, the more invisible you become to them. We often think that staying close to someone is how we show them our worth, that if we just love them more, stay patient, give them time, they'll suddenly see what they're risking. But that rarely works. When someone is used to having you, they stop working to keep you. They start assuming that no matter how little effort they put in, you'll still be there. That your love is guaranteed, that your presence is permanent. And when someone starts to see your presence as permanent, they stop valuing it. Not because they're cruel, but because humans are wired to value scarcity. What we know we can't easily lose, we stop fighting for. That's why absence is often more powerful than presence. Your presence can become background noise to someone who's used to it. But your absence, that's a disruption. It's an interruption in their routine, in their comfort, in their belief that you'll always be there. Absence forces reflection. It creates space. And in that space, they're confronted with the reality of life without you, something they probably haven't truly imagined because you've always made sure they didn't have to. But this isn't just about making them miss you. It's about something deeper, something for you. It's about reclaiming your power. When you step back, not out of spite, not to play games, but because you recognize that your effort is being taken for granted, you re-establish your self-worth. You stop trying to earn love that should have been given freely. You stop proving yourself to someone who should have already seen your value. That step back isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that being present for someone who doesn't see you is more lonely than being alone. Absence teaches people what presence cannot, because it removes the safety net, it removes the fallback plan. And in doing so, it gives the other person a choice, either step up or let you go. And if they choose to let you go, you have your answer. If they step up, then maybe they needed that wake-up call. But either way, you win, because your silence, your space, your decision to walk away from being undervalued, that's what sets the boundary. That's what communicates self-respect, and ultimately, that's what brings peace. So no, you don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to fight to be noticed. You don't need to perform for love that's real. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is remove your energy from the equation and let your absence speak the truth your words never could. And if they finally see you when you're gone, remember, they could have seen you all along. Consistency and distance might seem like opposite ends of the spectrum, but both are powerful communicators in a relationship. Consistency shows someone you care. It builds trust, safety, and emotional intimacy. It says, I'm here and I'm choosing you, not just once, but every day. On the other hand, distance can speak just as loudly, especially when consistency has been broken. When someone is inconsistent with you, hot one day, cold the next, engaged for a while, then distant without explanation, It creates emotional whiplash. You start questioning your worth. You start chasing the highs, hoping to fix the lows. And you tell yourself that if you just hold on a little tighter, they'll come back to the version of themselves you once knew. But here's where we get stuck. We keep showing up consistently for people who are inconsistent with us. We reward their unpredictability with unwavering devotion. Every time they drift, we reach. Every time they pull away, we move closer. And without realizing it, we teach them that their inconsistency doesn't cost them anything, that no matter how they show up or don't, we'll still be there waiting. But love isn't proven by how much you're willing to tolerate. It's revealed by how clearly you define what you deserve. When someone gives you inconsistency, the most powerful response isn't to double down on your love. It's to create space. It's to let distance enter the conversation, because distance does what your explanations, your texts, your late-night emotional conversations couldn't do. It forces a shift in dynamic. It interrupts the pattern. It shows that you're not going to keep giving effort into a space where there's no reciprocity. Distance isn't cold, it's not cruel, it's clarity. It says, I'm no longer going to participate in a relationship where I'm the only one showing up. And when you create that space, you start to see things more clearly too. You're no longer caught up in their temporary affection. You stop romanticizing potential and start recognizing patterns. The silence allows you to hear your own intuition again, the part of you that's been telling you all along that this isn't how love is supposed to feel. And if they notice the distance and step up, great. That's their opportunity to re-earn a place in your life through action, not just words. But if they don't, that's still an answer, one that may hurt in the moment, but saves you so much more pain in the long run. Because it's better to know someone's true level of investment than to keep guessing based on mixed signals. What we often forget is that emotional availability is a choice. You don't accidentally become consistent. You either prioritize someone or you don't. You either make space for them in your life or you let them fade into the background. And if someone is choosing to be inconsistent with you, they're already telling you where you stand in their life. Your job isn't to decode their behavior, it's to decide what you're willing to accept. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you tolerate inconsistency, you invite it. If you meet hot-hand, cold energy with loyalty, they'll never feel the need to change. But the moment you step back, not in anger, but in self-respect, that's when everything shifts. You're no longer clinging to the version of them you wish existed. You're choosing the version of you who no longer begs to be chosen. Consistency is love. Distance is a boundary. And both, when used wisely, can show someone exactly what you expect and exactly what you'll no longer accept. When you care deeply for someone, your instinct is often to give. You give your time, your energy, your presence, your loyalty, your heart. And when things start to feel unbalanced, when you feel like you're giving more than you're receiving, the natural impulse is often to give even more. You think, maybe if I just love harder, they'll see how much I care. Maybe if I prove myself enough, they'll finally start treating me the way I deserve. But love that needs to be proven constantly isn't love that's being respected. It's love that's being taken for granted. Respect doesn't come from overextending yourself. It doesn't come from pouring into someone who barely lifts a finger for you. It comes from balance, from boundaries, from reciprocity. If you're the one always initiating, always forgiving, always adjusting, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance. You're playing a part to keep someone else comfortable, even when it costs you your peace. And the more you do it, the more they expect it. Not out of malice, but because you've trained them to believe that your overgiving is normal, that your love is limitless, that your self-sacrifice is just part of the deal. But here's the hard truth. When you constantly overgive in an effort to be valued, you end up being valued less. Because what costs you everything means nothing to someone who never had to earn it. That's not because you're not enough. It's because they were never required to meet you halfway. And the longer you stay in that dynamic, the deeper the pattern becomes. Eventually, you lose sight of your own needs. You stop asking for more because you've convinced yourself that asking is ungrateful, that needing more is being needy, that wanting to feel loved in return makes you difficult. And that's when resentment sets in, not just toward them, but toward yourself for staying. This is why stepping back isn't cruel, it's necessary. Creating space is how you reset the energy in a relationship. It's how you stop enabling behavior that quietly erodes your self-worth. When you stop overgiving, you start observing. You see what they're really willing to do when they're no longer being carried. You give them a chance to meet you with their own effort, or to reveal that they never will. And that information is invaluable because clarity is kinder than false hope. Knowing where you stand, even if it hurts, is better than living in constant uncertainty. Pulling back isn't about playing games or being passive-aggressive. It's about realigning with your self-respect. It's about recognizing that love is mutual, not something one person builds while the other benefits. When you stop giving beyond your emotional budget, you remind yourself that your love is a gift, not a guarantee. And you remind them that being in your life is a privilege, not an entitlement. So no, you don't owe anyone more of you just because they've gotten used to having you. You don't have to prove your love by shrinking your needs or silencing your boundaries. The moment you stop overgiving and start expecting alignment is the moment you shift from desperation to dignity. And if they walk away when the extras stop, they were never there for you in the first place. They were there for what you could give them. Real respect begins when you stop chasing it and start requiring it, not through ultimatums, not through emotional outbursts, but through quiet, steady boundaries that say, I love you, but I will not abandon myself to keep you comfortable. You deserve someone who meets you in the middle, not someone who waits for you to do all the work. And the only way to know who that person is to stop overgiving and watch who steps forward. Disappearing isn't about being dramatic. It's not about punishing someone or trying to make a point through silence. It's about preserving your dignity when words no longer matter. You get to a place in certain relationships where talking feels useless, where you've said everything you needed to say, probably more than once, and nothing has changed. You've explained your hurt, your needs, your boundaries, and yet the other person continues to treat your emotions like a minor inconvenience instead of something to be taken seriously. And eventually, you realize that staying and repeating yourself is more exhausting than simply stepping away. When you remove yourself from a situation where you're not valued, you're not being passive-aggressive, you're reclaiming your peace. You're no longer trying to convince someone of your worth. You're no longer trying to get them to listen, care, or show up differently. Because if they wanted to, they already would have. Silence becomes your final statement, not out of spite, but out of clarity. You realize that your presence was a gift, and it's not something you're willing to keep giving to someone who can't see its value. There's a quiet power in disappearing, in no longer being available for half-hearted conversations, inconsistent effort, or breadcrumb affection. When you walk away, not with noise, but with grace, you're choosing yourself. You're choosing to stop pouring into a connection that only drained you. And it's not about making them suffer or miss you. It's about removing yourself from a cycle that kept you small, that kept you waiting, that kept you stuck. The fear that often holds people back from disappearing is the fear of looking like they gave up. But there is a difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up is what happens when you quit without trying. Letting go is what happens when you've tried everything and now your peace matters more than proving a point. And the truth is, if someone truly cared, if they really wanted to keep you in their life, They would never have put you in a position where walking away even had to be considered. Disappearing doesn't mean you stop loving them. It just means you stop abandoning yourself for them. It means you stop fighting for a seat at a table where you're not being fed, because love without respect is just emotional exhaustion. You're not here to beg for someone's attention, time, or consistency. You're here to share your life with someone who recognizes your value without needing to be reminded. Sometimes, the most powerful shift happens when you stop talking, when you stop chasing closure, when you stop trying to fix something that the other person never showed up to fix with you. That silence, your absence, it speaks volumes. It says, I'm done explaining, I'm done hoping, I'm done showing up alone in something that was supposed to be mutual. That kind of departure isn't cold, it's sacred, because it means you've finally decided to stop betraying your own emotional needs just to keep someone else comfortable. They may notice your absence, they may not, but either way, you find freedom because you're no longer trapped in the emotional chaos of waiting for someone else to change. You're choosing healing over attachment, peace over chaos, self-worth over validation. You walk away not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself enough to leave a place where love was supposed to live, but never did. And that's not weakness, that's strength disguised as silence. There comes a point when words stop working. You've explained your feelings, you've communicated your boundaries, you've asked for effort, for change, for something real to hold on to. And every time, you've hoped your honesty would be enough to spark something in them, some sense of urgency, some desire to step up. But it doesn't happen. You're left in the same place, saying the same things, while nothing shifts. That's when you realize the problem isn't that you haven't been clear, it's that they haven't been listening. And when someone isn't truly listening, no amount of explaining will change that. That's where absence comes in. Because absence has a way of doing what your words couldn't. When you pull back not out of bitterness but out of exhaustion, you give space for truth to show up. Your silence becomes louder than any emotional plea. Your absence starts to highlight all the things your presence made easy. You're no longer initiating the conversations. You're no longer smoothing over their inconsistencies. You're no longer showing up to do all the emotional labor, and that sudden void, that space where your effort used to be. It becomes undeniable. What they've taken for granted becomes painfully obvious, but only once it's no longer there. This isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate someone into missing you. It's not about silence as a weapon. It's about understanding that actions carry more weight than repeated explanations. You've already said everything that needed to be said. You've made yourself emotionally available, and if that wasn't enough for them to take you seriously, then continuing to explain yourself becomes an act of self-abandonment. You're not here to beg someone to care. You're not here to convince them that you're worth showing up for. Your absence gives them a moment to feel what life is like without your energy, your support, your love. And in that space, they're forced to do something they haven't done. Reflect. Reflect on who you were in their life. Reflect on what you brought to the table. Reflect on how much they've taken without truly giving back. And maybe they come to their senses, maybe they reach out with the effort you've been waiting for, but even if they don't, you've still won. Because you've taken your power back, you've stopped begging and started choosing yourself. There's strength in knowing when to go quiet. There's clarity in choosing distance over desperation. Not everyone deserves continued access to you, especially when they treat your presence like an afterthought. You are not required to keep explaining your needs to someone who keeps ignoring them. And your silence, the absence of your effort, your emotion, your availability, can sometimes deliver a message louder than anything else ever could. I'm done trying to be heard in a place that refuses to listen, and it's not just about what they learn from your absence, it's also about what you learn. You learn how peaceful it feels to no longer carry a relationship by yourself. You learn that self-worth isn't found in fixing someone, it's found in honoring your own emotional needs. You learn that silence can be healing, not because it punishes the other person, but because it frees you from the cycle of trying to make something work that was never working in the first place. So if you've said everything and nothing has changed, stop talking, step back, go quiet, let your absence say what your words never could. Let it be the mirror they refused to look into when you were still there. And let it be the start of your return to yourself, stronger, wiser, and no longer available for anything less than what you deserve. Closure is often misunderstood as something that comes from the other person. An explanation, an apology, or some sort of final conversation that ties up loose ends. We hope for it, wait for it, and sometimes even demand it, thinking it will heal the pain or bring peace. But the reality is that closure rarely comes from outside. It begins within. Healing truly starts the moment you stop seeking explanations from someone who never intended to provide them. When you stop over-explaining yourself and start honoring your own feelings, that's when you reclaim your power. Often, when relationships end or become painful, we get caught in the loop of over-explaining why we feel hurt, why we need more, why their behavior affects us so deeply. We try to make sense of it all, hoping that by articulating our feelings clearly enough, they'll finally understand us, change their ways, or show remorse. But this cycle rarely changes anything on their end. Instead, it keeps us emotionally tethered, waiting for validation that may never come. Over-explaining becomes a form of emotional exhaustion, a way we try to fix the unfixable, often at the expense of our own peace. Healing begins when you decide that your worth is not contingent on someone else's ability to understand or validate your experience. You don't need their permission to feel hurt, angry, or disappointed. You don't need their approval to move on. When you stop trying to justify your feelings or actions to them, you free yourself from their control. You start listening to your own voice, the one that says, "I deserve better, I am enough, and it's okay to let go." Letting go of the need to over-explain is also about setting boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. It means no longer replaying conversations in your mind or sending endless messages hoping for clarity. It means trusting that your feelings are valid even without their acknowledgement, and it means choosing self-compassion over self-doubt. By doing this, you protect your emotional well-being and create space for genuine healing. Closure, then, becomes an internal process of acceptance. It's recognizing that sometimes people don't change, don't see us, or don't value us in the way we hoped. It's accepting that we can't rewrite their story or fix their shortcomings. Instead, we turn inward, reaffirming our own worth and prioritizing our peace over external validation. This shift from seeking closure externally to creating it internally is what transforms pain into growth. This doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it didn't hurt. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about integrating it into your story without letting it define you. It's about carrying the lessons learned without carrying the weight of resentment or confusion. When you stop over-explaining and start accepting, you move from being stuck in the why to embracing the what's next. You begin to focus on your future, on the love and respect you deserve, rather than on someone who failed to give it. Ultimately, the moment you stop over-explaining yourself marks a turning point. It's when you stop asking for permission to feel whole and start claiming it for yourself. You step out of the role of the one who needs to be understood and into the role of the one who understands their own value. And in that shift lies true freedom, not because someone else gave it to you, but because you chose it for yourself. This internal closure empowers you to move forward with dignity and strength. It allows you to build healthier relationships in the future because you no longer depend on others to validate your worth. You've learned that your peace doesn't come from their explanations or apologies, but from your own acceptance and self-love. And that's a powerful place to be. At the end of the day, your worth isn't defined by how someone else chooses to treat you. It's defined by how you choose to honor yourself. When someone takes you for granted, the most powerful response isn't chasing or pleading. It's stepping back with grace, setting clear boundaries, and letting your absence do the talking. Remember, real respect and love come from mutual effort, not one-sided sacrifice. By choosing your peace over their approval, by valuing yourself enough to walk away from what no longer serves you, you reclaim your power. So, don't be afraid to disappear when it's time, to stop explaining when words fall on deaf ears, and to let your silence be a lesson in self-worth. Because the greatest love story you'll ever write is the one you have with yourself, strong, confident, and unapologetically whole.